All right, Grand Rising, my fellow I am, fellow fourth dimensional beings. We are going to go deep into our true dimensional self today. And our title is Thinking Fourth Dimensionally. All right, this is a Never Got a classic. It's a long tape, about an hour and a half. No, sorry, about an hour and 5 minutes. And so I probably won't be stopping the tape as much. Going to let it run because Never does a lot of a great job of actually explaining a lot of the forementions that he was talking about. So um, but nonetheless, I'll be peeling some of the layers as normal, as usual, and stuff like that. But want to get to the tape as quickly as possible so we can come back and have a grand discussion on this fourth dimensional self. All right. Um, we're also broadcasting both here on Zoom and on YouTube. So please, if you're there on YouTube and you're seeing us, give us a like and subscribe to our space, and also share it with your friends, family and friends, or whomever is of the same type of mindset as you are. I'm Chris Taylor, one of your hosts, and also with me, he's not here yet, but my co-host is Mr. Gregory Thomas, aka Sir T. Sir T large up himself. He's actually on the job doing two things at once. That's kind of who we are. We are dual beings, and we do two things at once because of our makeup. And so I guess in reality, as we know it, we're always multitasking. But he will join us in the interim at some point, but he's on the road doing his thing. All right, but we'll get to it. So without further ado, without any further delay, let's jump into it. I want to welcome you guys. Thank you for being here early. All of you that are, consistent and then coming into the space to further elevate your mentality. All right. This fourth dimensional audio / lesson is one of Neville's greatest work. It's going to be a practical exercise or inner size, I like to say these days, because it's internal. And Neville will be talking, giving some, I would say, description / that's basically interpreting parts of scripture that goes over everyone's head. And we seem to take it literally. So just to give you guys, especially you out there on Facebook, that, not Facebook, YouTube, that anything that Never mentions here, they are not physical, they're not literal, they're not historical. They are simply psychological acts of the mind, okay? And truthfully, everything you see going on here in the world, none of it is physical. It is all a psychological act being broadcast, projected / reflected on the screen of space. All right. We may not understand it, I would say inner works, as they would say, or inner workings, but we don't understand how our work necessarily, our whole, a lot of things work. Even this computer we're on right now, I don't understand how it works. I'm clueless. But nonetheless, it operates whether I know how it works or not. So our larger dimensional self is at play at all times, hence the term fourth dimensional. All right. And all we're doing is remembering, means going back to where we were before we took this plunge to become human, to become man, both male and female, and everything else you see around you, animals, the vegetation, the insects, whatever. It's all consciousness appearing as something physical. It's all an illusion. All right. And that is the great mystery of life. All right. So let's delve into it, guys, and listen up keenly, take some notes, if you will, mentally and physically. All right. So let's jump into it, get to the class. And as I said, we'll be coming back in the interim to peel off some of the layers that Neville is going to be talking about. All right, so here we are, guys, thinking fourth dimensionally. Neville Goddard, the greatest mystic of our time.
Neville Goddard.
There are two actual outlooks on the world possessed by every man, and the ancient storytellers were fully conscious of these two outlooks. They called the one the carnal mind, and the other the mind of Christ. We recognize these two centers of thought in the statement, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned."
All right, real quickly before we go any further to set the stage, I never mentioned two aspects of ourselves. One is called the carnal mind, and the other, the mind of Christ. Christ meaning the anointed one. Okay? The anointed one. That's what the name Christ means, or Christos from the Greek lexicon. All right? So the carnal mind, just to set the stage, is the conscious mind, the mind that thinks, imagines, contemplates, worries, all those different verbs that this conscious mind does. It's a thinking mind, okay? And when it thinks, it is always in the fourth dimension. We're always thinking fourth dimensionally, but we don't know it. The Christ mind is the fourth dimension, where the conscious thinks of things that already exist. And there's a scripture that says, everything that is, whatever is loosed in heaven, the fourth dimension, the Christ mind, is loosed on earth. And whatever is bounded in heaven, the fourth dimension, the Christ mind, is also bound on earth. So what does that say? It is just simply saying that the fourth dimension, the Christ mind, is where the magic happens, is where everything is. And when the conscious mind, the carnal mind, becomes aware of what's there already, it desires these things. It contemplates, imagines these things. And the fourth dimensional mind, the Christ mind, projects the what the conscious mind or the carnal mind becomes aware of, especially aware of being. Once you become that thing in mind, you feel like that's who you are, or what you desire to be. It is then projected. So the conscious mind, you can say the conscious mind is the film, the thing rolling as you're thinking, imagining, and the Christ mind, the fourth dimensional mind, also known as the subconscious mind, that mind projects what the conscious mind is rolling. You understand? And it only projects it once it is I would say, in the feeling of the thing that you're desiring. Once you assume the feeling of being it, it is then reflected by the subconscious mind, the fourth dimensional mind, the Christ mind. It is like a mirror. Once you are in front of this mirror and you are convinced this is what I desire to look like, and you no longer change your clothes, you walk out the door, and that's what you're happy with. That's what you're going to be projecting to the world. You cannot change it. You understand? You already accepted who you are, and so the conscious mind, being the carnal mind, is the mind of the physical universe, so to speak. It's aware of what's going on right now. It is always aware of now. It is the mind that is aware of now. Wherever you are, you know you are. That's your conscious mind, the carnal mind. And the Christ mind is subconscious. It's aware or absent of your awareness. You almost does not know that it exists because you're so stuck in the present, in the now. And so, that is what the tape or this lesson is going to be talking about primarily, and how these two minds work. All right, so pay close attention as we roll this tape. All right, so again, the carnal mind is the mind of awareness, the conscious mind. It knows what's going on. It knows where it's at. And it is ruled by your five senses. Okay, your five senses are very aware of everything. And the carnal, the conscious, the subconscious, the Christ-like mind, the fourth dimensional mind is you can call it the sixth sense. You understand? The fourth dimensional self that you are not aware of consciously. But whether you're aware of it or not, it is always there, lurking in the shadows and projecting everything that you become consciously. All right? So I hope that makes sense. We're going to jump back into it and run the tape, and we'll be back momentarily to discuss what is said.
2:14. To the natural mind, reality is confined to the instant called now. This very moment seems to contain the whole of reality. Everything else is unreal. To the natural mind, the past and the future are purely imaginary. In other words, my past, when I use the natural mind, is only a memory image of things that were. And to the limited focus of the carnal or natural mind, the future does not exist. The natural mind does not believe that it could revisit the past and see it as something that is present, something that is objective and concrete to itself. Neither does it believe that the future exists. To the Christ mind, the spiritual mind, which in our language we will call the fourth dimensional focus, the past, the present, and the future of the natural mind are a present whole. It takes in the entire array of sensory impressions that man has encountered, is encountering, and will encounter. The only reason you and I are functioning as we are today and are not aware of the greater outlook is simply because we are creatures of habit, and habit renders us totally blind to what otherwise we should see. But habit is not law. It acts as though it were the most compelling force in the world, yet it is not law. We can create a new approach to life. If you and I would spend a few minutes every day in withdrawing our attention from the region of sensation and concentrating it on an invisible state, and remain faithful to this contemplation, feeling and sensing the reality of an invisible state, we would in time become aware of this greater world, this dimensionally larger world. The state contemplated is now a concrete reality, displaced in time. Tonight, as we turn to our Bible, You be the judge as to where you stand in your present unfoldment. Our first story for tonight is from the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. In this chapter, there are 3 stories told as though they were separate experiences of the dominant characters. In the first story, we are told that Jesus came upon an insane man, a naked man who lived in the cemetery and hid himself behind the tombs. This man appealed to Jesus not to cast out the devils that bedeviled him. But Jesus said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. Mark 5:8. Thus Jesus cast out the devils that they may now destroy themselves. And we find this man, for the first time, clothed and in his right mind, and seated at the feet of the Master. We will get the psychological sense of this chapter by changing the name Jesus to that of enlightened reason or fourth dimensional thinking. As we progress in this chapter, we are told that Jesus now comes upon the high priest, whose name is Jairus. And Jairus, the high priest of the synagogue, has a child who is dying. She is 12 years old, and he appeals to Jesus to come and heal the child. Jesus consents, and as he starts toward the home of the high priest, a woman in the marketplace touched his garment. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, Who touched my clothes? Mark 5:30. The woman who was healed of an issue of blood that she had had for 12 years confessed that she had touched him. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. Mark 5:34. As he continues toward the home, the high priest, he is told that the child is dead, and there is no need to go to resurrect her. She is no longer asleep, but is now dead. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Mark 5:36. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. Mark 5:39. With this, the entire crowd mocked and laughed. But Jesus, closing the doors against the mocking crowd, took with him into the household of Jairus, his disciples, and the father and mother of the dead child. They entered into the room where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand, and said unto her, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. Mark 5:41. From this deep sleep she awoke and arose and walked. And the high priest and all the others were astonished. And he changed them straitly, that no man should know it. And he commanded that something should be given her to eat. Mark 5:43. You are this very night, as you are seated here, pictured in this 5th chapter of Mark. A cemetery is for one purpose. It is simply a record of the dead. Are you living in the dead past? If you are living among the dead, your prejudices, your superstitions, and your false beliefs that you keep alive are the tombstones behind which you hide. If you refuse to let them go, you are just as mad as the madman of the Bible, who pleaded with enlightened reason not to cast them out. There is no difference. But enlightened reason is incapable of protecting prejudice and superstition against the inroads of reason. There is not a man in this world who has a prejudice, regardless of the nature of the prejudice, who can hold it up to the light of reason. Tell me you are against a certain nation, a certain race, a certain ism, a certain anything. I do not care what it is. You cannot expose that belief of yours to the light of reason and have it live. In order that it may be kept alive in your world, you must hide it from reason. You cannot analyze it in the light of reason and have it live. When this fourth dimensional focus comes and shows you a new approach to life and casts out of your own mind all these things that bedeviled you, you are then cleansed and clothed in your right mind, and you sit at the foot of understanding, called the feet of the Master. Now clothed and in your right mind, you can resurrect the dead. What died? The child in the story is not a child. The child is your ambition, your desire, the unfulfilled dreams of your heart. This is the child housed within the mind of man. For as I have stated before, the entire drama of the Bible is a psychological one. The Bible has no reference at all to any person who ever existed or any event that ever occurred upon earth. All the stories of the Bible unfold in the minds of the individual man. In this story, Jesus is the awakened intellect of man. When your mind functions outside of the range of your present senses, when your mind is healed of all the former limitations, then you are no longer the insane man, but you are this presence personified as Jesus, the power that can resurrect the longings of the heart of man. You are now the woman with the issue of blood. What is this issue of blood? A running womb is not a productive womb. She held it for 12 years. She was incapable of conceiving. She could not give form to her longing because of the running of the issue of blood. You are told her faith closed it. As the womb closes, it can give form to the seed or idea. As your mind is cleansed of your former concept of self, you assume you are what you want to be, and remaining faithful to this assumption. You give form to your assumption or resurrect your child. You are the woman cleansed of the issue of blood, and you move towards the house of the dead child. The child or state you desired is now your fixed concept of yourself. But now, having assumed that I am what formerly I desired to be, I cannot continue desiring what I am conscious of being. So I do not discuss it. I talk to no one concerning what I am. It is so obvious to me that I am what I wanted to be, that I walk as though I were. Walking as though I am what formerly I wanted to be, my world of limited focus does not see it and thinks I no longer desire it. The child is dead within their world. But I, who know the law, say, the child is not dead. The damsel is not dead. She but sleepeth. I now awaken her. I, by my assumption, awaken and make visible in my world what I assume, for assumptions, if sustained, invariably awaken what they affirm. I close the door. What door? The door of my senses. I simply shut out completely all that my senses reveal. I deny the evidence of my senses. I suspend the limited reason of the natural man and walk in this bold assertion that I am what my senses deny. With the door of my senses closed, what do I take into that disciplined state? I take no one into that state but the parents of the child and my disciples. I close the door against the mocking, laughing crowd. I no longer look for confirmation. I completely deny the evidence of my senses, which mock my assumption, and do not discuss with others whether my assumption is possible or not. Who are the parents? We have discovered that the father-mother of all creation is man's I amness. Man's consciousness is God. I am conscious of the state. I am the father-mother of all my ideas, and my mind remains faithful to this new concept of self. My mind is disciplined. I take into that state the disciples, and I shut out of that state everything that would deny it. Now the child, unaided by a man, is resurrected. The condition which I desired and assumed that I had becomes objectified within my world and bears witness to the power of my assumption. You be the judge. I cannot judge you. You are either living now in the dead past, or you are living as the woman whose issue of blood has been stanched. Could you actually answer me if I asked you the question? Do you believe now that you, without the assistance of another, need only assume that you are what you want to be to make that assumption real within your world? Or do you believe that you must first fulfill a certain condition imposed upon you by the past, that you must be of a certain order or a certain something? I am not being critical of certain churches or groups, but there are those who believe that anyone outside of their church or group is not yet saved. I was born a Protestant. You talk to a Protestant, there is only one Christian, a Protestant. You talk to a Catholic, why, there is nothing in the world that is a Christian but a Catholic. You talk to a Jew, and the Christians are heathens, and the Jews are the chosen. You talk to a Mohammedan, Jews and Christians are the infidels. You talk to someone else, and all these are the untouchables. It does not matter to whom you talk. They are always the chosen ones. If you believe that you must be one of these in order to be saved, you are still an insane man, hiding behind these superstitions and these prejudices of the past, and you are begging not to be cleansed. Some of you say to me, "Do not ask me to give up my belief in Jesus the man, or in Moses the man, or in Peter the man." When you ask me to give up my belief in these characters, you are asking too much. Leave me these beliefs because they comfort me. I can believe that they lived upon earth and still follow your psychological interpretation of their stories. I say, come out of the dead past. Come out of that cemetery and walk, knowing that you and your Father are one, and your Father, who men call God, is your own consciousness. That is the only creative law in the world. Of what are you conscious of being? Although you cannot see your objective with the limited focus of your three-dimensional mind, you are now that which you have assumed you are. Walk in that assumption and remain faithful to it. Time in this dimension of your being beats slowly, and you may not, even after you objectify your assumption, remember there was a time when this present reality was but an attitude of mind. Because of the slowness of the beat of time here, you often fail to see the relationship between your inner nature and the outer world that bears witness to it. You be the judge of the position you now occupy in this 5th chapter of Mark. Are you resurrecting the dead child? Are you still in need of having that womb of your mind closed? Is it still running and therefore cannot be fertile? Are you now the insane man living in the deed past? Only you can be the judge and answer these questions. Now we turn to a story in the 5th chapter of the Gospel of John. This will show you how beautifully the ancient storytellers told of the two distinct outlooks on this world. One, the limited three-dimensional focus, and the other, the fourth-dimensional focus. This story tells of an impotent man who is quickly healed. Jesus comes to a place called Bethesda, which by definition means the house of 5 porches. On these 5 porches are unnumbered impotent folk, lame, blind, halt, withered, and others. Tradition had it that at certain seasons of the year, an angel would descend and disturb the pool which was near these 5 porches. As the angel disturbed the pool, the first one in was always healed, but only the first one, not the second. Jesus, seeing a man who was lame from his mother's womb, said to him, "Wilt thou be made whole?" John 5:6. The impotent man answered him, "Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me." John 5:7. Jesus saith unto him, "Rise, take up thy bed and walk." John 5:8. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed, and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. John 5:9. You read this story, and you think some strange man who possessed miraculous power suddenly said to the lame man, "Rise and walk." I cannot repeat too often that the story, even when it introduces numberless individualities, takes place within the mind of the individual man. The pool is your consciousness. The angel is an idea called the messenger of God. Consciousness being God, when you have an idea, you are entertaining an angel. The minute you are conscious of a desire, your pool has been disturbed. Desire disturbs the mind of man. To want something is to be disturbed. The very moment you have an ambition or a clearly defined objective, the pool has been disturbed by the angel, which was the desire. You are told that the first one into the disturbed pool is always healed. My closest companions in this world, my wife and my little girl, are to me when I address them. Second, I must speak to my wife as you are. I must speak to anyone, no matter how close they are, as you are. And after that, the third person, he is. There is only one person in this world with whom I can use the first person present, and that is self. I am can be said only of myself. It cannot be said of another. Therefore, when I am conscious of some desire that I want to be, but seemingly am not, the pool being disturbed, who can get into that pool before me? I alone possess the power of the first person. I am that which I want to be. Except I believe I am what I want to be, I remain as I formerly was and die in that limitation. In this story, you need no man to put you into the pool as your consciousness is disturbed by desire. All you need do is to assume you are already that which formerly you wanted to be, and you are in it, and no man can get in before you. What man can get in before you when you become conscious of being that which you want to be? No one can be before you when you alone possess the power to say, I am. These are the two outlooks. You are now what your senses would deny. Are you bold enough to assume that you are already that which you want to be? If you dare assume you are already that which your reason and your senses now deny, then you are in the pool, and, unaided by a man, you too will rise and take your couch and walk. You are told it happened on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is only the mystical sense of stillness, when you are unconcerned, when you are not anxious, when you are not looking for results, knowing that signs follow and do not precede. The Sabbath is the day of stillness, wherein there is no working. When you are not working to make it so, you are in the Sabbath. When you are not at all concerned about the opinion of others, when you walk as though you were, you cannot raise one finger to make it so, you are in the Sabbath. I cannot be concerned as to how it will be, and still say, I am conscious of being it. If I am conscious of being free, secure, healthy, and happy, I sustain these states of consciousness without effort or labor on my part. Therefore, I am in the Sabbath. And because it was the Sabbath, he rose and walked. Our next story is from the 4th chapter of the Gospel of John, and it is one you have heard time and time again. Jesus comes to the well, and there is a woman called the woman of Samaria, and he said to her, Give me to drink. John 4:7. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, asketh drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. John 4:9. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. John 4:10. The woman, seeing that he has nothing with which to draw the water, and knowing the well is deep, says, Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? John 4:12. Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. John 4:13, 14. Then he tells her all concerning herself, and asks her to go and call her husband. She answered and said, I have no husband. John 4:17. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. John 4:17, 18. The woman, knowing this to be true, goes into the marketplace and tells the other, I have met the Messiah. They ask her, How do you know you have met the Messiah? Because he told me all things that I have ever done, she replies. Here is a focus that takes in the entire past at least, and tells her now concerning the future. Continuing with the story, the disciples come to Jesus and say, Master, eat. John 4:31. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. John 4:32. When they speak of a harvest in 4 months, Jesus replies, Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest? Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes, and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. John 4:35. He sees things that people wait 4 months for, or wait 4 years for. He sees them as now in a dimensionally larger world, existing now, taking place now. Let us go back to the first part of the story. The woman of Samaria is the 3-dimensional you, and Jesus at the well is the 4th-dimensional you. The argument starts between what you want to be and what reason tells you that you are. The greater you tells you that if you would dare assume you are already what you want to be, you would become it. The lesser you, with its limited focus, tells you, why, you haven't a bucket, you haven't a rope, and the well is deep. How could you ever reach the depth of this state without the means to that end? You answer and say, if you only knew who asks of you to drink, you would ask of him. If you only knew what in yourself is urging upon you the embodiment of the state you now seek, you would suspend your little sight and let him do it for you. Then he tells you that you have 5 husbands and you deny it. But he knows far better than you that your 5 senses impregnate you morning, noon, and night with their limitations. They tell you what children you will bear tonight, tomorrow, and the days to come. For your 5 senses act like 5 husbands who constantly impregnate your consciousness, which is the great womb of God. And morning, noon, and night, they suggest to you and dictate to you that which you must accept as true. He tells you the one you would like to have for your husband is not your husband. In other words, the 6th has not yet impregnated you. What you would like to be is denied by these 5, and they hold the power. They dictate what you will accept as true. What you would like to accept has not yet penetrated your mind and impregnated your mind with its reality. He whom you call husband is really not your husband. You are not bearing his likeness. To bear his likeness is proof that you are his wife. At least you have known him intimately. You are not bearing the likeness of the 6th. You are only bearing the likeness of the 5. Then one turns to me and tells me all that I have ever known. I go back in my mind's eye, and reason tells me that all through my life, I have always accepted the limitations of my senses. I have always looked upon them as fact. And morning, noon, and night, I have borne witness to this acceptance. Reason tells me I have only known these 5 from the time I was born. Now I would like to step outside the limitation of my senses, but I have not yet found within myself the courage to assume I am what these 5 would deny that I am. So here I remain, conscious of my task, but without the courage to step beyond the limitations of my senses and that which my reason denies. He tells these, I have meat ye know not of. I am the bread that droppeth down from heaven. I am the wine. I know what I want to be, and because I am that bread, I feast upon it. I assume that I am, and instead of feasting upon the fact that I am in this room talking to you, and you are listening to me, and that I am in Los Angeles, I feast upon the fact that I am elsewhere, and I walk here as though I were elsewhere, and gradually I become what I feast upon. Let me give you 2 personal stories. When I was a boy, I lived in a very limited environment in a little island called Barbados. Feed for animals was very, very scarce and very expensive because we had to import it. I am one of a family of 10 children, and my grandmother lived with us, making 13 at the table. Time and again, I can remember my mother saying to the cook, in the early part of the week. I want you to put away 3 ducks for Sunday's dinner. This meant that she would take from the flock in the yard 3 ducks and coop them up in a very small cage and feed them, stuff them morning, noon, and night with corn and all the things she wanted the ducks to feast upon. This was an entirely different diet from what we regularly fed the ducks, because we kept those birds alive by feeding them fish. We kept them alive and fat on fish, because fish were very cheap and plentiful. But you could not eat a bird that fed upon fish, not as you and I like a bird. The cook would take 3 ducks, put them in a cage, and for 7 days stuff them with corn, sour milk, and all the things we wanted to taste in the birds. Then when they were killed and served for dinner, 7 days later, they were luscious, milk-fed, corn-fed birds. But occasionally the cook forgot to put away the birds, and my father, knowing we were having ducks and believing that she had carried out the command, did not send anything else for dinner, and 3 fish came to the table. You could not touch those birds, for they were so much the embodiment of what they fed upon. Man is a psychological being, a thinker. It is not what he feeds upon physically, but what he feeds upon mentally that he becomes. We become the embodiment of that which we mentally feed upon. Now those ducks could not be fed corn in the morning, and fish in the afternoon, and something else at night. It had to be a complete change of diet. In our case, we cannot have a little bit of meditation in the morning, curse at noon, and do something else in the evening. We have to go on a mental diet. For a week, we must completely change our mental food. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Phil. 4:8. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If I could now single out the kind of mental food I want to express within my world and feast upon it, I would become it. Let me tell you why I am doing what I am doing today. It was back in 1933 in the city of New York, and my old friend Abdullah, with whom I studied Hebrew for 5 years, was really the beginning.
All right, guys. Let us go over some of these things real quickly. Just a list of things. I just played the first half of the tape, so we're at 30 minutes in, and then we're going to come back and play the last half, and hopefully we can have a discussion and close out the today's lesson. But going back, for those of you who joined us late, we are doing inner exercise, our inner size, known as thinking fourth dimensionally, because we are fourth dimensional beings. We're not human, we are spirit. The human side of us is just a reflection of the spirit, or the spirit becoming physical. The spirit is invisible, but I want to address that more deeply. I don't know what the word invisible says in the dictionary. It might say something that's absent, not seen, but invisible really means visible from within, only from within. Hence the word invisible. Okay? When you use your imagination, you are visualizing, you are seeing something from within. It's not projecting in front of you on the outside. You know it's within you. That within is a fourth dimensional view. Okay? So the invisible, meaning visible only from within, the not seen on the external, but the internal, um, is your fourth dimensional space, also known as the Christ mind, or mind of Christ. Um, Simply termed in Neville's terminology, imagination. Okay? So your fourth dimensional self is your imagination, also known as the sixth sense. Okay? That number six is very, very important to understand. But it is a sixth sense, and it is actually the only sense, the first, the only, the one and only. Um, it is always first, but it's always in the background, hidden subconsciously, and we don't realize how powerful it is. We just think it's something that is a part of our human construct, and we don't um, necessarily, need to understand it. It is what it is. It's a tool that we get to use, and um, oftentimes because of our ignorance, we use it unwisely. All right. So again, invisible means visible from within, your very own imagination. Um, it mentions something about the man at the cemetery. Cemetery meaning record of the past, and everyone that's in the cemetery are dead and are people of the past. So these are your hang-ups in life, your former beliefs, things that's holding you back. These are in your cemetery, so to speak. It is all within consciousness. Again, remember, everything is consciousness. Nothing is physical. It's all an illusion. The physical is an illusion. The only thing that is real is your inner world, your inner space, the invisible. That is the real world. What we're seeing is a projecting. Just like a movie. When we watch a movie, I was at the movie last night watching Bad Boys. Pretty interesting movie. Talks a lot about consciousness, interestingly. Most people there probably didn't quite understand it, but I was following along just fine. It was interesting. But as things are projected on the screen, you know it's not real. You know it's not there. It's just a projection. The only thing that's real is the actual film and the projector itself. But what's being projected on the screen is not real. It disappears just like that. You understand? And this is why we come and go. This is why the body comes, gets older, and dies and withers away. All right? Anything that is real cannot change, cannot die. Like gold, you know. That's why gold is used in the Bible a lot. It's probably one of the precious jewelry that's always been used. Streets of gold, gold is gold that, and it represents real, something that's unchanging, something that's pure. That's what I'm calling it, pure gold. Consciousness is that pure gold that you carry around. The tape started with the carnal mind and the mind of Christ, or the carnal mind meaning the natural man or the natural mind. Whenever you hear them use the word natural, associated with nature, the nature of something, our name. All right? The natural mind is what gives something the nature. The natural mind thinks of something and you're giving it a nature. You think of something to write, the nature of this pen is to write. You don't have any other nature besides that. And so you thought of a way on how you can create something that can write what you're thinking, so you can have it as memory. I can't trust your memory. So man has thought about a pen to create a what I call it now, a history, if you will, of what man has thought about. History meaning his story. So you're thinking of something, you write it down, whatever. But the pen was not naturized, if that's a word. A natural mindset of the conscious mind is to give something purpose. And so hence the natural mind, the carnal mind, another name for it, simply means to give something a nature, a name. The word name means nature. The mind of Christ is the fourth dimensional mind, the mind that is of the truest reality, of truest self. It's the mind where everything is real, everything exists. There is nothing that it does not know or is not aware of. The conscious mind, the carnal mind, is becoming aware of everything that's in the fourth dimension. Very important to know, the carnal mind and the mind of Christ are one. They are husband and wife. The Christ mind is the wife, the feminine aspect of man. The carnal mind is the male or husband, um, the head of the household. The Christ mind is the household. The carnal mind is the husband or head of the household. All these things are put in our tax papers and stuff like that. Now we don't understand what they're talking about, but it's really talking about consciousness. Okay, your conscious mind is the head of your consciousness. All right, and without that conscious mind, nothing is desired. Nothing would be in this world in terms of the conscious mind desiring something in particular. All right. But the subconscious mind, the mind of Christ, is the greater mind, because within that mind, it believes, it is fearful, it never relents, it always knows. Okay, it's actually the mind of knowing or of wisdom or faith. The carnal mind is the mind of belief. It needs to believe what it's thinking about. But your subconscious mind does not believe, it knows. It's the mind of know. Okay, everything in it is the past, the present, and the future is all one. Okay. They mentioned about Jarius. Jarius had a child of 12 years old that Christ had to raise from the dead. Jarius, this means God enlightened. All right. The word enlightened just simply means um, the mind of knowing. It's the mind of, it's a spiritual mind. Okay. The spiritual mind knows. All right. So you are Jarius. All of us is Jarius, but we don't know it. And we always have a desire, which is the child. That is our desire, as mentioned in the tape. Okay, we always have a child of 12 years. It's not literally 12 years old, just a spiritual number, as in the 12 disciples. Um, if you the 12 disciples is your conscious mind, and it's the mind that you have to discipline. Okay, it's the mind of this that you have to discipline. Um, and within it are 12 faculties of itself. The conscious mind, again, is the mind of desires. So it's talking about your child, which is your desires. It's in all your desires comes from your conscious mind. They're in your conscious mind. Okay? The Christ mind cannot think or reason. Um, all it does is reflect or give back whatever you give to it. In other words, if you pour water into a cup, the only thing you can get from the cup is what you poured into it, the water. You can't get sugar or water until you add the sugar to the water. So you have the mind, the conscious mind conditions everything. It's the mind of conditioning. Okay? And whatever you condition, the conscious mind, the Christ mind, gives it back to you. Can't give you anything you never give to it. Perish that thought. All right? So Jarius means God enlightens. It's a spiritual mind, and we all have it. Okay? It is the fourth dimensional self that that knows. Okay? And it's a spiritual mind. The Christ mind is the mind of spirit. Okay? The woman up with the issue of blood, these two stories are linked with the 12-year-old. It mentions that the woman of the issue with the issue of blood is like your womb. Um, in a woman that is going through the your monthly, you cannot be pregnant necessarily at that time, though we know that's possible in the physical world. But in general, a woman cannot get pregnant or is not supposed to be pregnant while you are having a menstruational period. So you cannot house a child at that time. But as soon as the womb stops the menstrual cycle and it's impregnated, the womb closes by way of the cervix. Once the cervix closes, it means that you are pregnant. Okay? And so the womb here mentioned is not the physical womb, it's your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the womb of man, male and female. Both male and female have or has a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is the womb, hence the term woman. Okay, it's the womb of man. And your conscious mind is the male or the man that impregnates the woman, the subconscious mind. So until you impregnate your subconscious mind, you cannot bear a child. All right. So that's what that is saying right there. That woman of 12 of with the issue of blood was said to touch on Christ's what do you call it now? Touched on his garment and she was healed. And he turned to her and said, "Who touched me?" And she said, "I touched you." And he said, "Well, your faith has made you whole." All that is saying there is that um, in order to do anything, you have to have faith in doing it. Your faith is what's going to, your faith is like a glue. It attaches you to your desire and you stay faithful to it. Wherever your desire goes, your faith has to be there. Excuse me, in order for it to manifest. So your faith, according to your faith, so says scripture, you are made whole. The crowd that's talking about here, the crowd that mocks, the crowd is basically your five senses that becomes aware of all the ways that something will not happen, cannot happen. It's not a literal crowd. It just means your five senses become aware of so many different things. It's called a crowd, okay? Your five senses is the crowd of doubts and fear and evil, negative, all the impossibles. That is what your five senses can become aware of. All right. But it did say that once the lady was cured, it mentions that it was because of her faith. Okay. So your five senses will it would diminish your faith. So you have to turn away from your five senses and only stay within, which is your Christ mind, the fourth dimensional world. Everything there exists. Stay in that world. Don't stay in the world of five senses, the world of physical, because you will not see the possibility. But if you stay in the fourth dimensional world, the Christ mind, that's where your faith holds you. If you stay outside, you don't have any faith because you're not going to see how it is even possible. So don't look on the outside, stay on the inside. The fourth dimensional world, everything exists. That's your imagination. There's nothing that you cannot imagine and don't see it. If you see it, it exists there. Okay? But if you stay faithful to it, it will then reflect eventually into your world. The foot of understanding just means, you are in a state of wisdom, of inner peace. Nothing can, draw you out or away from your Christ mind, your Christ-like state of being. Okay, so the foot of understanding, foot means you're firm, you are standing still, cannot be moved. You're standing on the ground of on holy ground, so to speak. And you're advised to close the doors of your five senses, all your five senses, your sight, your hearing, your smelling, your tasting and feeling or touching. You have to close all those senses off from the thing you're imagining and only stay in the world of the fourth dimensional, the sixth sense. Stay in that world and disregard what's going on with the five senses. So it's called the doors to your fourth dimensional. Your five senses are the doors to your fourth dimensional self. You have to close those off so they won't be affected. This is where the story of the 12 disciples always surrounding Jesus. Jesus being your Christ mind, fourth dimensional self, the 12 disciples being your conscious mind / five senses, and you are to discipline your conscious mind to protect the Christ mind, because whenever the Christ mind becomes aware of, it projects, okay? Whatever the Christ mind senses that you are being, by way of feeling, it projects, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, all right? Sorry, T, I don't know if him come back yet. I think he had, see him there? Sorry, T,
Yeah,
are you still?
yeah, I just logged in, but I'm doing a million things at the same time on the job, but I'm listening in. I can't quite chime in as yet.
Okay, you're back at the house though?
Yeah, I just got here. I have some paperwork and stuff I have to complete though.
All right, cool. Yeah, man, just know where yourself. We're gonna play the second half and then we'll come back and close out the show. Just I'll go over the first 3 or 4 stories mentioned here. Your I amness is your father, mother, self. No child can be born into this world without a father and a mother. Even if it's animal or insect, there has to be both sexes, father and mother, male and female, okay? If it's a single species, meaning it doesn't have a male and female, it's just one species. That one species, in order to create, has to have 2 genitals, male and female, in order for you to produce, okay? A male cannot produce and a female cannot produce. The 2 have to coexist, all right? The 2 have to come together. So some animals out there have both genitals and can impregnate themselves, okay? But perish the thought if you think one single species or whatever can have a child, okay? It will never happen. There has to be 2. All right. What is it saying right here? It mentioned up to Bethesda. Beth means house, and Bethesda means the house of five porches, but I like to call it the house of five senses. Anytime you mention the word five, I mean the number five, they are always talking about your five senses. So the house of five senses, Bethesda, that Bethesda is basically talking about your dwelling place consciously. Think of it as that. It's where you're always dwelling consciously. The word Beth means house, Bethlehem, house of bread. Okay? So you're always dwelling somewhere in consciousness. And funnily, sometimes you're conscious of it, and most of the time you are not conscious of what you're doing. You're just reacting. You're not acting, you're just reacting. You see something happen, and it becomes your state of being, you know, and you absorb that and become it and don't even realize it. Okay, that's why you have to be careful with the things you watch. You can watch things, whatever be crime or whatever, just do not let it be your state of being. It should just be for entertainment purposes and not something to actually contemplate. You understand? Don't watch a movie with people breaking into people's house and then you start worrying about somebody breaking out your house. Okay? All you need to do is become aware of the possibility, but do not dwell in that state. Dwelling in that state will cause you to experience that state. Okay? Everything should just be what you become aware of, but not necessarily aware of being it, unless it's something good. Okay? Only become aware of good. Become aware of being good and just become aware of evil. Don't be evil. Just be aware of it. All right? It mentions something about lame from his mother's birth. So it was talking about the guy who was lame. Lame just means non-existent, not what you want it to be, your desire. It not happened yet, but it is in the womb of the mind of consciousness, but it is not present yet. So it is seen as lame. It doesn't mean somebody who's actually lame when you read the story. All right? These are a state of consciousness being spoken of in the Bible, not physical. All right? The states of being. So all of our desires are dormant or lame, no present reality, so to speak, but it is always there until you give it birth or give it vividness, using your imagination. Sabbath is not thinking. When you're in the Sabbath, you don't think anymore. You're just in a state of being, a state of stillness, a state of rest. So Sabbath is always when you stop all the thinking, you only think from 1 to 6. Your creation is from 1 to 6. You're thinking of something, that's 1 to 6. As mentioned in scripture in Genesis, your creation is always from the first day to the 6th day. Not literally, these are just symbolic numbers. 6 meaning the day that you finish creating. Then you go into the Sabbath, which is to stop creating, to not think of anything anymore. Just be in the state of being. You are now it, whatever it is. All right? That's what Sabbath means. State of being, stillness, no longer thinking or working mentally. It's not, for those of you who may be out there watching us on Facebook, the Sabbath does not mean a literal day of the week, okay? It's only symbolic of your consciousness. All right? Sabbath is not a day where you sit down and do nothing. I work on Saturdays. And, you know, many people have to work on Saturdays. The hospitals have to work on Saturdays. If you're in the medical field, you have to work on Saturdays. You have to work 365. That's absolute nonsense where if you believe that working on the seventh day is a sin. The only sin there is psychologically. Working on the Sabbath, meaning in your awareness, if you continue to think of the thing you're desiring, it will not manifest because you're still conditioning it. It means that you have accepted that you are it. So you are not to work on the Sabbath. You are not to think on the Sabbath of your desire. When you get to the Sabbath, you are done with it. You are already being that thing. Start thinking about something else. And like this, practically, when a woman is pregnant, they can't get her pregnant again. Her womb close up. Cannot be pregnant twice. Okay? Cervix closed. Ain't no more eggs coming down. You have the one egg developing until that child is born. She cannot be impregnated again. If that does ever happen, and that's probably possible, it is a malfunction of the of your anatomy. It's not supposed to happen. But in consciousness, stillness is when you are no longer thinking of the thing desired. You are already it, and you are resting. And you can go into something else now to create and stuff like that. It mentions about the pool with the angel. Your angel is your desire. It's the same story being told in so many different ways. The angel is your desire coming down into the pool. Your pool is your consciousness. Consciousness being the whole, everything that you already are. That is your pool. Pool of things, you know, pool of desires. The woman of Samaria, the Samaritans. Samaria just means your third dimensional self. That's all it means. The third dimensional self, the physical. And the Christ is your fourth dimensional self. It talks about the woman that was at the well. The well meaning consciousness, having access to consciousness, having access to desires. To the well has water in it. It's deep, and you're always plunging into the well to get out of it water, get out of it your desires. But you have to become the fourth dimensional self whenever you're desiring. Okay, meaning that you stay in that space of awareness. Do not accept what's going on in your third dimensional world. I have a couple of things that I'm working on right now, presently. And in the third dimension, I am not in the capacity where it is even possible. You know, I know that. I'm conscious of it. I'm not in the capacity where it is possible based on what is needed. But I, knowing how awareness works, I don't dwell on that truth or so-called facts. I dwell only in the fourth dimensional self, which is the true facts of life. And if I dwell there, what I'm not currently, what I don't currently have access to, I soon will. But I have to stay in the fourth dimension. All things there are possible to he who believes. Who is he who believes? Your conscious mind. If the conscious mind believes, your conscious mind is the mind of belief, the Samaritan. Okay? It has to believe. The fourth dimensional self does not believe, it knows. Okay? You cannot believe what you know. Okay? Belief is for the outer world, the physical world. All right? But you have to dwell in the fourth dimension. And it talks about finally The woman says she have 5 husbands. The woman at the well, she got 5 husbands, her 5 senses. You understand? Now, if that was literal, people, didn't it say in the Bible say, where it said something about what God has put together, let no man put asunder, meaning you cannot divorce, you cannot be married to multiple times. Some religions believe that. Take it literally that you cannot be married more than once. Absolute nonsense. You know, they take it so literally, they think that it means you're not so, like if you're in a bad relationship or whatever, you know, how terrible it is or whatever the case may be, you're supposed to stay in it because your religion say you can't divorce or you can't marry twice or 3 times or whatever. It's foolishness. It's talking about your conscious mind, which is ruled by the 5 senses. The 5 senses are your husbands, 5 of them. Whether you're male or female, you have 5 husbands. Okay? And the 6th husband is your imagination, your Christ mind, the 4th dimensional self. Okay? That is your 6th husband. So the story goes, she said, the 6th husband is not mine. And all that meant was that she was not being the nature of her 6th husband, which knows all things, which is the Christ mind. She wasn't being faithful to what the Christ mind is showing, who's mentioned here as the 6th husband. Now, the Christ mind is normally mentioned as the wife and stuff like that, but they're interchangeable. Husband here is just saying that there are times when you have to let your Christ mind become the husband or the decision maker, meaning that if you're trying to do something and your 5 senses tells you it's not possible, do not make a decision based on the 5 senses. Let your subconscious mind, the Christ mind, your 4th dimensional mind, make the decision. This is where they have the term say, leave it up to God. Turn it over to God, which is your 4th dimensional self. Okay? We are trying to stay away from that word, God, because it makes it sound like say it's another being who is not you or is not in you or part of you. It's separate and apart. You understand? But we just use that word just for just to explain and make it, you know, more relatable, so to speak. Okay? But your imagination is where you should always be dwelling. Everything is real in your imagination. I don't care what it is. It's real because that is the inner world. Okay? So dwell there. And don't use your 5 senses to accept any so-called impossibility. Okay? Everything that you see here was once so-called impossible. Okay? Everything in this world was once impossible. But it became possible because it came from the 4th dimension. It was bounded in the 4th dimension, so it became bounded on Earth, the 3rd dimension. And anytime it disappears is because it was loosed in the 4th dimension. You understand? Therefore, it became loose or lost from this Earth. Okay? So we're going to jump back into absolutely. Imagination is the power. It's not a separate being. It's not separate and apart from you. It is who you truly are. Okay? And it dwells in the 4th dimension. Every time you are thinking, imagining, contemplating, you are in the 4th dimensional space. It's an inner world, and it means the invisible, meaning visible from within. That's what the word invisible means. Forget what the dictionary says. Okay? Invisible means visible from within. That's why it's spelled invisible, in vision. Okay? You can see it by way of your third eye. Okay? Your imagination. That's what it means. So let's jump back into the second half of the tape, and then we're going to come back and close out this thing around about 12:30 or so. All right, so stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. And Neville's going to be talking here about Abdullah. Just to give you a preface, the guy who taught him most of what he knows. Abdullah was an Ethiopian mystic and taught Neville Hebrew for 5 years. This is why Neville knows scripture so well. Because, you know, scripture was written firstly in Hebrew. And whatever you see that's in Greek is only a translation, you know, but never learned the Bible from that aspect. And that's why he's so well-rounded in explaining this thing. We have a hard time understanding the Bible because we speak English. And even the people that speak Hebrew, they have lost the symbolism or the symbolic meaning of their own language. That's very interesting. They have no clue what their own language means. They think it's just a language, but it is not. It is so much more deeper than that. So much more deeper than that. Well, let's jump into it and we'll be right back.
Of the eating of all my superstitions. When I went to him, I was filled with superstitions. I could not eat meat. I could not eat fish. I could not eat chicken. I could not eat any of these things that were living in the world. I did not drink. I did not smoke. And I was making a tremendous effort to live a celibate life. Abdullah said to me, I am not going to tell you you are crazy, Neville, but you are, you know, all these things are stupid. But I could not believe they were stupid. In November 1933, I bade goodbye to my parents in the city of New York as they sailed for Barbados. I had been in this country 12 years with no desire to see Barbados. I was not successful, and I was ashamed to go home to successful members of my family. After 12 years in America, I was a failure in my own eyes. I was in the theater and made money 1 year and spent it the next month. I was not what I would call by their standards, nor by mine, a successful person. Mind you, when I said goodbye to my parents in November, I had no desire to go to Barbados. The ship pulled out, and as I came up the street, something possessed me with a desire to go to Barbados. It was the year 1933. I was unemployed and had no place to go except a little room on 75th Street. I went straight to my old friend Abdullah and said to him, Ab, the strangest feeling is possessing me. For the first time in 12 years, I want to go to Barbados. If you want to go, Neville, you have gone, he replied. That was very strange language to me. I am in New York City on 72nd Street, and he tells me I have gone to Barbados. I said to him, what do you mean I have gone, Abdullah? He said, do you really want to go? I answered, yes. He then said to me, as you walk through this door now, you are not walking on 72nd Street. You are walking on palm-lined streets, coconut-lined streets. This is Barbados. Do not ask me how you are going to go. You are in Barbados. You do not say how when you are there. You are there. Now you walk as though you were there. I went out of his place in a daze. I am in Barbados. I have no money. I have no job. I am not even well clothed, and yet I am in Barbados. He was not the kind of a person with whom you would argue, not Abdullah. 2 weeks later, I was no nearer my goal. than on the day I first told him I wanted to go to Barbados. I said to him, "Ab, I trust you implicitly, but here is one time I cannot see how it is going to work. I have not one penny towards my journey," I began to explain. You know what he did? He was as black as the ace of spades, my old friend Abdullah, with his turbaned head. As I sat in his living room, he rose from his chair and went towards his study and slammed the door, which was not an invitation to follow him. As he went through the door, he said to me, "I have said all that I have to say." On the 3rd of December, I stood before Abdullah and told him again I was no nearer my trip. He repeated his statement, "You are in Barbados." The very last ship sailing for Barbados that would take me there for the reason I wanted to go, which was to be there for Christmas, sailed at noon on December 6th, the old Narissa. On the morning of December 4th, having no job, having no place to go, I slept late. When I got up, there was an airmail letter from Barbados under my door. As I opened the letter, a little piece of paper flickered to the floor. I picked it up, and it was a draft for $50. The letter was from my brother Victor, and it read, "I am not asking you to come, Neville. This is a command. We have never had a Christmas when all the members of our family were present at the same time. This Christmas, it could be done if you would come." My oldest brother, Cecil, left home before the youngest was born, and then we started to move away from home at different times. So never in the history of our family were we ever all together at the same time. The letter continued, "You are not working. I know there is no reason why you cannot come, so you must be here before Christmas. The enclosed $50 is to buy a few shirts or a pair of shoes you may need for the trip. You will not need tips. Use the bar if you are drinking. I will meet the ship and pay all your tips and your incurred expenses. I have cabled Furness, Withy & Co. in New York City and told them to issue you a ticket when you appear at their office. The 50 tondo zerols is simply to buy some little essentials. You may sign as you want aboard the ship. I will meet it and take care of all obligations." I went down to Furness, Witty & Co. with my letter and let them read it. They said, "We received the cable, Mr. Goddard, but unfortunately, we have not any space left on the December 6th sailing. The only thing available is 3rd class between New York and St. Thomas. When we get to St. Thomas, we have a few passengers who are getting off. You may then ride LS class from St. Thomas to Barbados. But between New York and St. Thomas, you must go 3rd class, although you may have the privileges of the LST class dining room and walk the decks of the 1st class." I said, "I will take it." I went back to my friend Abdullah on the afternoon of December 4th and said, "It worked like a dream." I told him what I had done, thinking he would be happy. Do you know what he said to me? He said, "Who told you that you are going 3rd class? Did I see you in Barbados, the man you are, going 3rd class? You are in Barbados, and you went there 1st class." I did not have one moment to see him again before I sailed on the noon of December 6th. When I reached the dock with my passport and my papers to get aboard that ship, the agent said to me, "We have good news for you, Mr. Goddard. There has been a cancellation, and you are going 1st class." Abdullah taught me the importance of remaining faithful to an idea and not compromising. I wavered, but he remained faithful to the assumption that I was in Barbados and had traveled 1st class. Now back to the significance of our 2 Bible stories. The well is deep, and you have no bucket, you have no rope. It is 4 months to the harvest, and Jesus says, "I have meat to eat ye know not of. I am the bread of heaven." Feast on the idea. Become identified with the idea as though you were already that embodied state. Walk in the assumption that you are what you want to be. If you feast on that and remain faithful to that mental diet, you will crystallize it. You will become it in this world. When I came back to New York in 1934, after 3 heavenly months in Barbados, I drank, I smoked, and did everything I had not done in years. I remembered what Abdullah had said to me. After you have proven this law, you will become normal, Neville. You will come out of that graveyard. You will come out of that dead past where you think you are being holy. For all you are really doing, you know. You are being so good, Neville. You are good for nothing. I came back, walking this earth a completely transformed person. From that day, which was in February 1934, I began to live more and more. I cannot honestly tell you I have always succeeded. My many mistakes in this world, my many failures would convict me if I told you that I have so completely mastered the movements of my attention that I can at all times remain faithful to the idea I want to embody. But I can say with the ancient teacher, although I seem to have failed in the past, I move on and strive day after day to become that which I want to embody in this world. Suspend judgment, refuse to accept what reason and the senses now dictate. And if you remain faithful to the new diet, you will become the embodiment of the ideal to which you remain faithful. If there is one place in the world that is unlike my little island of Barbados, it is New York City. In Barbados, the tallest building is 3 stories, and the streets are lined with palm trees and coconut trees and all sorts of tropical things. In New York City, you must go to a park to find a tree. Yet I had to walk the streets of New York as though I walked the streets of Barbados. To one's imagination, all things are possible. I walked, feeling that I was actually walking the streets of Barbados, and in that assumption, I could almost smell the odor of the coconut-lined lanes. I began to create within my mind's eye the atmosphere I would physically encounter were I in Barbados. As I remained faithful to this assumption, somebody canceled passage, and I received it. My brother in Barbados, who never thought of my coming home, has the commanding urge to write me a strange letter. He had never dictated to me, but this time he dictated and thought that he originated the idea of my visit. I went home and had 3 heavenly months, returnless class, and brought back quite a sum of cash in my pocket. A gift. My trip, had I paid for it, would have been $3,000, yet I did it without a nickel in my pocket. I have ways ye know not of. My ways are past finding out. The dimensionally greater self took my assumption as the command and influenced the behavior of my brother to write that letter, influenced the behavior of someone to cancel that first-class passage, and did all the things necessary that would tend toward the production of the idea with which I was identified. I was identified with the feeling of being there. I slept as though I were there, and the entire behavior of man was molded in harmony with my assumption. I did not need to go down to Furness, Withy & Co. and beg them for a passage, asking them to cancel someone who was booked first class. I did not need to write my brother and beg him to send me some money or buy me a passage. He thought he originated the act. Actually, to this day, he believes that he initiated the desire to bring me home. My old friend Abdullah simply said to me, "You are in Barbados, Neville. You want to be there? Wherever you want to be, there you are. Live as though you are, and that you shall be." These are the 2 outlooks. On the world possessed by every man, I do not care who you are. Every child born of woman, regardless of race, nation, or creed, possesses 2 distinct outlooks on the world. You are either the natural man who receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, because to you, in the natural focus, they are foolishness unto you, or you are the spiritual man, who perceiveth things outside of the limitations of your senses, because all things are now realities in a dimensionally larger world. There is no need to wait 4 months to harvest. You are either the woman of Samaria or Jesus at the well. You are the man waiting on the 5 porches for the disturbance and someone to push him in. Or you are the one who can command yourself to rise and walk in spite of others who wait? Are you the man behind the tombstones in the cemetery, waiting and begging not to be cleaned because you do not want to be cleansed of your prejudices? One of the most difficult things for man to give up is his superstitions, his prejudice. He holds on to these as though they were the treasure of treasures. When you do become cleansed and you are free, then the womb, your own mind, is automatically healed. It becomes the prepared ground where seeds, your desires, can take root and grow into manifestation. The child you now bear in your heart is your present objective. Your present longing is a child that is as though it was sick. If you assume you are now what you would like to be, the child for a moment becomes dead because there is no disturbance anymore. You cannot be disturbed when you feel you are what you want to be, because if you feel you are what you wanted to be, you are satisfied in that assumption. To others who judge superficially, you seem no longer to desire, so to them the desire or damsel is dead. They think you have lost your ambition because you no longer discuss your secret ambition. You have completely adjusted yourself to the idea. You have assumed that you are what you want to be. You know, she is not dead, she but sleeps. I go to awaken her. I walk in the assumption that I am, and as I walk, I quietly awaken her. Then when she awakens, I will do the normal, natural thing. I will give her to eat. I will not brag about it and tell others. I simply go and tell no man. I feed this state I now like with my attention. I keep it alive within my world by becoming attentive to it. Things that I am not attentive to fade and wither within my world, regardless of what they are. They are not just born and then remain unfed. I gave them birth by reason of the fact that I became conscious of being them. When I embody them within my world, that is not the end. That is the beginning. Now I am a mother who must keep alive this state by being attentive to it. The day that I am not attentive, I have withdrawn my milk from it, and it fades from my world as I become attentive to something else in my world. You can either be attentive to the limitations and feed these and make them mountains, or you can be attentive to your desires. But to become attentive, you must assume you are already that which you wanted to be. Although today we speak of a third-dimensional and a fourth-dimensional focus, do not think for one moment these ancient teachers were not fully conscious of these two distinct centers of thought within the minds of all men. They personified these two, and they tried to show man that the only thing which robs him of the man he could be is habit. Although it is not law, every psychologist will tell you that habit is the most inhibiting force in the world. It completely restricts man and binds him and makes him totally blind to what otherwise he should be. Begin now to mentally see and feel yourself as that which you want to be, and feast upon that sensation morning, noon, and night. I have scoured the Bible for a time interval that is longer than 3 days, and I have not found it. Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. John 2:19. Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. Joshua 1:11. If I could completely saturate my mind with one sensation and walk as though it were already a fact, I am promised, and I cannot find any denial of it in this great book, that I do not need more than a 3-day diet if I remain faithful to it. But I must be honest about it. If I change my diet in the course of the day, I extend the time interval. You ask me, but how do I know about the interval? You yourself determine the interval. We have today in our modern world a little word which confuses most of us. I know it confused me until I dug deeper. The word is action. Action is supposed to be the most fundamental thing in the world. It is not an atom, it is more fundamental. It is not a part of an atom like an electron, it is more fundamental than that. They call it the fourth dimensional unit. The most fundamental thing in the world is action. You ask, what is action? Our physicists tell us that it is energy multiplied by time. We become more confused and say, energy multiplied by time, what does that mean? They answer, there is no response to a stimulus, no matter how intense the stimulus, unless it endures for a certain length of time. There must be a minimum endurance to the stimulus, or there is no response. On the other hand, there is no response to time, unless there is a minimum degree of intensity. Today, the most fundamental thing in the world is called action, or simply energy multiplied by time. The Bible gives it as 3 days. The duration is 3 days for response in this world. If I would now assume I am what I want to be, and if I am faithful to it and walk as though I were, the very longest stretch given for its realization is 3 days. If there is something tonight that you really want in this world, then experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh were you to realize your goal and deafen your ears, and blind your eyes to all that denies the reality of your assumption. If you do this, you would be able to tell me before I leave this city of Los Angeles that you have realized what was only a wish when you came here. It will be my joy to rejoice with you in the knowledge that the child, which was seemingly dead, is now alive. This damsel really was not dead. She was only asleep. You fed her in this silence because you have meat no one else knows of. You gave her food, and she became a resurrected living reality within your world. Then you can share your joy with me, and I can rejoice in your joy. The purpose of these lessons is to remind you of the law of your own being, the law of consciousness. You are that law. You were only unconscious of its operation. You fed and kept alive the things you did not wish to express within this world. Take my challenge and put this philosophy to the test. If it does not work, you should not use it as a comforter. If it is not true, you must completely discard it. I know it is true. You will not know it until you try either to prove or disprove it. Are you the man behind the tombstones in the cemetery, waiting and begging not to be clean, because you do not want to be cleansed of your prejudices? One of the most difficult things for man to give up is his superstitions, his prejudice. He holds on to these as though they were the treasure of treasures. When you do become cleansed and you are free, then the womb, your own mind, is automatically healed. It becomes the prepared ground where seeds, your desires, can take root and grow into manifestation. The child you now bear in your heart is your present objective. Your present longing is a child that is as though it were sick. If you assume you are now what you would like to be, the child for a moment becomes dead because there is no disturbance anymore. You cannot be disturbed when you feel you are what you want to be, because if you feel you are what you want it to be, you are satisfied in that assumption. To others who judge superficially, you seem no longer to desire. So to them the desire or damsel is dead. They think you have lost your ambition because you no longer discuss your secret ambition. You have completely adjusted yourself to the idea. You have assumed that you are what you want to be. You know, she is not dead, she but sleepeth. I go to awaken her. I walk in the assumption that I am, and as I walk, I quietly awaken her. Then when she awakens, I will do the normal, natural thing. I will give her to eat. I will not brag about it and tell others. I simply go and tell no man. I feed this state I now like with my attention. I keep it alive within my world by becoming attentive to it. Things that I am not attentive to fade and wither within my world, regardless of what they are. They are not just born and then remain unfed. I gave them birth by reason of the fact that I became conscious of being them. When I embody them within my world, that is not the end, that is the beginning. Now I am a mother who must keep alive this state by being attentive to it. The day that I am not attentive, I have withdrawn my milk from it, and it fades from my world as I become attentive to something else in my world. You can either be attentive to the limitations and feed these and make them mountains, or you can be attentive to your desires. But to become attentive, you must assume you are already that which you wanted to be. Although today we speak of a third-dimensional and a fourth-dimensional focus, do not think for one moment these ancient teachers were not fully conscious of these two distinct centers of thought within the minds of all men. They personified these two, and they tried to show man that the only thing which robs him of the man he could be is habit. Although it is not law, every psychologist will tell you that habit is the most inhibiting force in the world. It completely restricts man and binds him and makes him totally blind to what otherwise he should be. Begin now to mentally see and feel yourself as that which you want to be, and feast upon that sensation morning, noon, and night. I have scoured the Bible for a time interval that is longer than 3 days, and I have not found it. Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. John 2:19. Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. Joshua 1:11. If I could completely saturate my mind with one sensation and walk as though it were already a fact, I am promised, and I cannot find any denial of it in this great book, that I do not need more than a 3-day diet if I remain faithful to it. But I must be honest about it. If I change my diet in the course of the day, I extend the time interval. You ask me, but how do I know about the interval? You yourself determine the interval. We have today in our modern world a little word which confuses most of us. I know it confused me until I dug deeper. The word is action. Action is supposed to be the most fundamental thing in the world. It is not an atom, it is more fundamental. It is not a part of an atom like an electron, it is more fundamental than that. They call it the fourth dimensional unit. The most fundamental thing in the world is action. You ask, what is action? Our physicists tell us that it is energy multiplied by time. We become more confused and say, energy multiplied by time, what does that mean? They answer, there is no response to a stimulus, no matter how intense the stimulus, unless it endures for a certain length of time. There must be a minimum endurance to the stimulus, or there is no response. On the other hand, there is no response to time, unless there is a minimum degree of intensity. Today, the most fundamental thing in the world is called action, or simply energy multiplied by time. The Bible gives it as 3 days. The duration is 3 days for response in this world. If I would now assume I am what I want to be, and if I am faithful to it and walk as though I were, the very longest stretch given for its realization is 3 days. If there is something tonight that you really want in this world, then experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh were you to realize your goal and deafen your ears and blind your eyes to all that denies the reality of your assumption. If you do this, you would be able to tell me before I leave this city of Los Angeles that you have realized what was only a wish when you came here. It will be my joy to rejoice with you in the knowledge that the child which was seemingly dead is now alive. This damsel really was not dead. She was only asleep. You fed her in this silence because you have meat no one else knows of. You gave her food, and she became a resurrected living reality within your world. Then you can share your joy with me, and I can rejoice in your joy. The purpose of these lessons is to remind you of the law of your own being, the law of consciousness. You are that law. You were only unconscious of its operation. You fed and kept alive the things you did not wish to express within this world. take my challenge and put this philosophy to the test. If it does not work, you should not use it as a comforter. If it is not true, you must completely discard it. I know it is true. You will not know it until you try either to prove or disprove it. Too many of us have joined isms, and we are afraid to put them to the test because we feel we might fail. And then, where are we? Not really wanting to know the truth concerning it, we hesitate to be bold enough to put it to the test. You say, I know it would work in some other way. I do not want to really test it. While I have not yet disproved it, I can still be comforted by it. Now do not fool yourself. Do not think for 1 second that you are wise. Prove or disprove this law. I know that if you attempt to disprove it, you will prove it, and I will be the richer for your proving it, not in dollars, not in things, but because you become the living fruit of what I believe I am teaching in this world. It is far better to have you a successful, satisfied person after 5 days of instruction than to have you go out dissatisfied. I hope you will be bold enough to challenge this instruction and either prove or disprove it. Now, before we go into the silence period, I shall briefly explain the technique again. We have 2 techniques in applying this law. Everyone here must now know exactly what he wants. You must know that if you do not get it tonight, you will still be as desirous tomorrow concerning this objective. When you know exactly what you want, construct in your mind a single, simple event, which implies fulfillment of your desire, an event wherein self predominates. Instead of sitting back and looking at yourself as though you were on the screen, you be the actor in the drama. Restrict the event to 1 single action. If you are going to shake a hand because that implies fulfillment of your desire, then do that and that only. Do not shake hands and then wander off in your imagination to a dinner party or to some other place. Restrict your action to simply shaking hands and do it over and over again until that handshake takes on the solidity and the distinctness of reality. If you feel you cannot remain faithful to an action, I want you now to define your objective and then condense the idea, which is your desire, into a single phrase, a phrase which implies fulfillment of your desire. Some phrase such as, isn't it wonderful? Or if I felt thankful because I thought someone was instrumental in bringing my desire to pass, I could say, thank you, and repeat it with feeling over and over again like a lullaby until my mind was dominated by the single sensation of thankfulness. We will now sit quietly in these chairs with the idea which implies fulfillment of our desire condensed to a single phrase or to a single act. We will relax and immobilize our physical bodies. Then, let us experience in imagination the sensation which our condensed phrase or action affirms. If you imagine yourself shaking another person's hand, do not use your physical hand. Let it remain immobilized. But imagine that housed within your hand is a more subtle, more real hand, which can be extracted in your imagination. Put your imaginary hand into the imaginary hand of your friend who stands before you and feel the handshake. Keep your physical body immobilized, even though you become mentally active in what you are now about to do.
Now we will go into the silence. Hope you enjoy the lecture. Now we move to Q&A section.
Question. When you have as assumed your desire, do you keep in mind the ever-presence of this greater one, protecting and giving you your assumption?
Answer. The acceptance of the end wills the means. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and your dimensionally greater self will determine the means. When you appropriate a state as though you had it, the activity of the day will divert your mind from all anxious thoughts so that you do not look for signs. You do not have to carry the feeling that some presence is going to do it for you. Rather, you know it is already done. Knowing it is already a fact, walk as though it were. and things will happen to make it so. You do not have to be concerned about some presence doing anything for you. The deeper, dimensionally greater you has already done it. All you do is move to the place where you encounter it. Remember the story of the man who left the master and was on his way home when he met his servant who said, "Your son lives." And when he asked at what hour it was done, the servant replied, "The 7th hour." The self-same hour that he assumed his desire, it was done for him, for it was at the 7th hour that the master said, "Your son lives." Your desire is already granted. Walk as though it were, and, although time beats slowly in this dimension of your being, it will nevertheless bring you confirmation of your assumption. I ask you not to be impatient, though. If there is one thing you really have need of, it is patience.
Question. Isn't there a law that says you cannot get something for nothing? Must we not earn what we desire?
Answer. Creation is finished. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. The parable of the prodigal son is your answer. In spite of man's waste, when he comes to his senses and remembers who he is, he feeds on the fatted calf of abundance and wears the robe and ring of authority. There is nothing to earn. Creation was finished in the foundation of time. You, as man, are God made visible for the purpose of displaying what is, not what is to be. Do not think you must work out your salvation by the sweat of your brow. It is not 4 months until the harvest, the fields are already white, simply thrust in the sickle.
Out of This World by Neville Goddard. Los Angeles, 1949.
All right. Welcome back. We're going to close out the show, the lesson of today shortly. Just going to go back over some things and just peel some more layers of what Neville was speaking about here in the second half of the lesson. Today's lesson is titled Thinking Fourth Dimensionally. Okay, we are fourth dimensional beings, which means we can only think in the fourth dimension. All right. Whenever your mind goes off into space, so to speak, you are in the fourth dimension. You are always there. You are not really here. It might sound crazy to speak like that, but we are really from the fourth dimension. We really live there. That is our place of being. Can only be something in the fourth dimension. You cannot be anything in this world. You're just displaying in this world who you are being in the fourth dimension. Okay? That's what I call us human beings. We are always being something, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Sometimes we're influenced by the outside world, and we entertain that and we become it in the fourth dimension, and then we project what we become or what we're being. All right, so that being said, Sir T, are you still busy? I'm gonna go over some things here in the second half real quickly. And for those of you who are out there on YouTube, thank you guys for joining our viewing. Again, we're discussing thinking fourth-dimensionally. And Neville, the great mystic of our time, gave us a wonderful lesson on what that is all about. Sir T, how you say, big brother?
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. We're there. Just to reiterate a few points that was made, and I mean we have said it repeatedly, but as the statement goes, the truth is worth saying a million times. You can never say the truth enough times, and it is very simple, you know. It's very straightforward. When you really get the gist of it, that thinking fourth-dimensionally is really the act of thinking from the fulfilled desire rather than thinking of it. Thinking from a place where the desire is already fulfilled rather than thinking of it. Thinking of it creates a separation between you and the desire because you're thinking of it. Creates a separation. Thinking from it means that you have become one with it. So you have to. There's a statement that Neville once used when say his grandfather would stand on an empty plot of land and say, I remember when this was an empty plot of land. You know what he's doing when he do that? When he stand on the empty plot of land and say, I remember when this was an empty plot of land, he's now assuming it's not empty. He's thinking from a place where a big old plaza is on the land, even though the land is empty.
The assumption is false.
Yes.
So whatever say about that.
An assumption, though false, if persisted in, it will harden into fact.
So you have to persist.
You have to persist. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, it will harden into fact. So you have to assume that it is the way you want it to be and persist in that assumption. Deny what 5 senses are telling you. Deny what them 5 husbands they are telling you. Deny all of that and impregnate yourself with the one husband that you want the child from. You have to see there is nobody to convince except yourself. You know? There's nobody to convince except yourself. Once you have convinced yourself of something, you're bound to experience it. Because you have made it a reality. You know, so it's just, and these are things that we know it, but we don't practice it. We hear it and we know it. We hear it. We can know it in terms of that we can repeat it. We can parrot it, but we have not practiced it. And because we not practice it, we not experience it. We have to practice these things. You know, don't go by what the doctor just tell you. Say. Not go by the news where the doctor tell you, unless the news where the doctor tell you is the one where you want to hear. If the doctor tell you a news that you don't want to hear, then you ignore that. That's not what you heard. You can always hear whatever you want to hear. You can close your eyes right now and hear at someone in your ears. And whose voice you always hear it in? Your voice and I hear it in another voice. You can see what you want to see. Seeing is not only what you see with your 2 eyes. Seeing is what you perceive with your mind. Because everything in the end narrows down to perception. It's how you perceive the thing is the way you're going to turn around and experience the thing. The other night on our sister program, Mind Chat, that we have on Tuesday nights, which, by the way, I implore you guys to check it out if you haven't. 8 o'clock, Tuesday nights, same Zoom link. A few weeks ago, we were discussing a topic named out of mind, out of sight. I know that we have heard the cliche said the other way, out of sight, out of mind. And that is true to a point. But the deep truth of that matter is out of mind, out of sight. If you don't have a thing perceived in your mind, it will never manifest in your presence for you to experience it. Out of mind, out of sight. So you have to walk around impregnating your mind with the baby where you want to have. You have to impregnate your mind via your conscious thoughts with the baby where you want to have. And don't worry about how it will happen, because your subconscious mind has a way of doing it that you don't know, that you know not of. That's why even the God term that we not deal with, I could accept a man going around saying God, 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 if every man would have didn't know that the subconscious mind is God. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Because the subconscious mind does things that the conscious mind have no way of knowing how it is done. The subconscious mind does the impossible. The subconscious mind has been from everlasting to everlasting. Dare you not think that when you were born, that's when your subconscious mind was born? The subconscious mind is that universal mind that we all partake of. That's why things like telepathic communication can take place, because my subconscious mind and your subconscious mind is the same mind. My conscious mind and your conscious mind are two totally different minds. Your conscious mind has been impregnated with that thing named Christianity because of where you were born. While a man was born in Afghanistan, his conscious mind was impregnated with that thing named Islam because of that. Him did born. But the subconscious mind of the Christian and the subconscious mind of the Muslim and the subconscious mind of the atheist is the same subconscious mind. That's why you can have a telepathic communication with a one where you there in Jamaica and you thought of vibes the man and I said, boy, a long time I hear from Chris. No, I should have give him a link later. And before you give him a link later, I'm give you one. Because you came out of the realm of the conscious mind and entered the realm of the subconscious mind where you and Chris can meet. The subconscious mind is the mind in which you dream. That's why when you dream, you can dream, see a man who did dead for 25 years ago and you did go in funeral and you know him dead. This is not like lizard where them not find lizard body and people still wonder if him dead. I talk about man where you go in funeral and see him in a coffin and know him dead. Yet when you go to your bed, your dream see him, and when your dream see him, and him still walk and talk and him. The sound and voice sound the same, him look the same, him is the same. When your dream see a virgin when he's dead, you know, come out of the dream and I wonder if I'm here to see him. As you wake up, you can call Chris and say, yo, Chris, I know some dreams this one. Because you know him, your dream see him, look the same, him sound the same as him. But him dead, but you go over there to go see him. Because dream is in the world of subconscious. And in the world of subconscious, nothing dies. Nobody not dead. That's why the man where you see dead, you in the conscious world, you go over in the subconscious world and see him over there. And know see him. And me alone experience that. You experience that, right, Sir Chris?
All of us.
Oh, okay. Me just have one day for me alone. Because when we talk them things, people look for me like a 7 we have like them no experience it too.
Oh man, it's not unique not at all.
All right, good. So you know things were true, you know. Things that are true are not unique. You see, when people are talking about the Holy Ghost tell me said this and the Holy Ghost tell me said, if the Holy Ghost it tell people things that they tell everybody.
Yeah.
Anything at all that you see is kind of secluded and it is only reserved for a special set of people. I met them the people that make up that in them head. Things were real, everybody know. Things that is real, everybody knows it's real. That's why people don't get up every day. You look on all these TikTok lives where you see people are argue about whether God real or God not real. You hear nobody over there wonder and argue if the moon real. People don't argue about things were real. When things are real, everybody know. You see, people delude themselves with this spooky thing called the Holy Ghost, where them feel that they want Holy Ghost something there, where pick out a special set of people where say them see them and I tell them some things when nobody else knows. Them things is nonsense. When things real, everybody know. Like when you hear me tell about the dream world, you know, and I know after in your dream, you know, say, it's the same world like mine, the same things that when me dream, and just like how it relates to me in my dream, I say it relates to every man in them dream, because it's a real thing. Saying, check out a thing. Anything that you see does not measure up to the consensus of the masses. It's not real. It's not real. That's why people don't believe it. When things real, everybody know it. You don't have to argue about nobody. I'm not talking about a little boy, a baby, a toddler, anybody, everybody know.
You don't know what it is, but you know that it is.
But you know that it is.
Yeah.
When you start to present some things to people and some people are saying, no, sir, I wonder if, no, sir, I wonder if. It's not real. If it's real, people are not know. People are not idiots. saying, so
No,
not
no.
to digress from the point where we did the pan. You can pick it up back, Circus, because me have a way when me start up, me just go off.
Oh my, but they all listen to you, sir, man. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Going in the right direction, you know? Going in the right direction.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, man. We're talking truth. We're talking truth and reality, man. If truth must measure up with reality. If it don't measure up with reality, it's not true. That's why the Bible is that one thing that is such an anomaly where you always say the Bible is true, but it is not real. That's why the Bible comes with so much conflict, and some people believe it and some don't believe it because it is that one. It is the anomaly there. It is true. Yeah, when you overstand it, it is true, but it's not real. It's not reality. It not measure up to reality. Not donkey, not talk. Just to believe that the donkey did talk one time. If you can believe that a donkey did talk one time, then you can believe that a cow did jump over the moon one time too.
But donkey talk one time, can't talk many other times, so.
You can talk many other time. One more donkey can talk. Sticks don't turn into serpents. You can't throw them a piece of stick and it turn into a serpent. Cannot happen. But how long you have to live to know that can't happen? I mean, you're going to live and dead as an old man and live down there your bed as an 85-year-old man and believe that it can turn into a serpent. And in your whole years, you and none of your colleagues them never see that happen yet.
All here says
it's not reality. It is not reality. The Bible have a whole heap of truth in it. You have a whole heap of lie in it. So.
The only way you turn a stick into a serpent is if you carve out the stick into a serpent.
Shape like one.
You understand? And guess where the serpent come from? That comes
from your mind.
From your mind, the fourth dimension.
Yes.
You understand?
That comes from the fourth dimension.
You are replicating what's in the fourth dimension and the stick. But the stick itself can't turn into that unless you consciously do it. You can visualize either the stick or the wood, the snake, but it's not going to show up until you carve it out.
No, keep in mind now, we're not legit. The man them say when Moses threw on him rod, I was it a year on. Aaron threw on him staff, him rod, and the rod turned into a serpent. And fear a wise man them say how you think you deal with it. And throw down for them rod when it turned into a serpent too.
Yeah.
And for Aaron rod swallow for them rod, and a big man sit down and listen to that story there and actually I picture it in my mind say it happening. You know why you believe they happen? You know why you believe they happen? Because when you read the story, and while you're reading the story, you're creating the movie in your mind where you watch it in your mind, and in your mind you see it happen.
And so you believe it.
So you believe it because in your mind you see it happen. But what you do?
And the only place it can happen.
And the only place it can happen is in your mind. Historically, it never happened and it can never happen. It's not legit. But one of the people them start accept things that are practical. It's a practical life you're living. You're born a physical man out of your born out of your mother and live a physical life on this earth with some spiritual powers. There are spiritual powers what we have. Yes. All that we have it. And nobody feels here because that the religion that you're attached to or whatever that caused you to have. No. Any spiritual power one man have, every man have it. Because every man have an imagination, every man have a mind. And that's the only place where the power comes from. Every man have a mind and that's where the power comes from. A man might not be able to use his mind to do what you use your mind to do because he don't understand how to do it. That don't mean he can't do it. He don't understand how to do it.
Yeah. That is motivation or ambition.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we want them to be careful. We want them to be careful or not just accept some things and accept some things. No. We will look into things And anytime things don't come together logically to make sense, something is wrong. If you accept a thing that is not logical, if you're going to accept a thing that is not logical, you're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself.
You know, say, you know what would have been interesting, sir, if
Yes,
in
sir.
the Bible there was a preface where it says the Bible or this book that is laden with stories, though it may seem physical, they are not real. You understand? Though they may seem physical, they are not real. They're not historical. They never happened. They are only states of being, states of consciousness, awareness. And it is the only place where these things are true. But Perisher thought that what you're about to read is to be accepted literally. You see, if the Bible would have a preface like that, a little statement in the first half, the first page, we wouldn't have this conflict or this misunderstanding. We would already read everything already knowing not to. It's like a movie. You go to the movie. Last night I went to see Bad Boys, Ride or Die. Going to the movie, say it's not real. It is all an act. But not to tell you. But when you watch it, you get caught up in the movie as though you are actually one of the characters, whether it be good or bad. You're caught up in it. You understand? But you're still aware that it's just a movie. At the end of the day, nothing never goes up. Is there a lesson? Yeah. Even though the movie is not real, it is a lesson. It is teaching you something. But whatever it's teaching you is to be applicable in your own life. But do not take what you're seeing as something that actually happened. To believe, say, in the movie, Martin can lay down in a water with this 900-pound crocodile or alligator, I believe, yeah, that are in Florida. And this and that and the third, and it's not eaten. It's foolishness. Don't try it at home. You understand? But there can be a lesson from that. There can be a lesson from that, psychologically. But it is not to be accepted that it actually happened. It's a movie. It is a script, as in scripture. Just a script written by man, written by the mind of man. Nobody from the sky never come down and tell the man, say, write this and write that. Absolute garbage, foolishness. Okay? That coming down from the sky is your own awareness. Because man talks to themselves. We talk to ourselves. We talk to ourselves all day long. There's nobody here on this panel who does not speak to themselves, within themselves, every day. And sometimes I talk out aloud. I've seen people moving them lips, but they're thinking of something. And that is just how they behave when they're thinking to themselves. You understand? So every man talk to themselves every day, all day. But you talk to yourself silently, within. And the man who wrote the movie, we go watch last night, those were inner conversations, not outer. Nobody ever come out from the sky and tell them to write this movie named Bad Boys. No, they got the inspiration from within themselves. And the lines and this and that, the third. And all the characters. And all they did was went out and petition people to come and audition for these parts. He never write the movie for Will Smith or Martin Lawrence. There were other actors who auditioned for it. And they happened to get the part back in 1994, I believe it was. I think that's when the movie came out or something like that. You know? And they did such a great job. There was no need to get any other actors to do it, to portray it. They became the just like in the Bible, we're still talking about Adam and Eve and everybody else. You know, those are fixed characteristics, are states of consciousness in the Bible, biblically speaking. You know, so they remain with that name or nature. You know, they fit. It makes sense to the writers, the authors, with those names or nature of, you know. And so we should see the Bible just the same as we see movies. We should perish the thought that the Bible is real or historical. It is absolutely not. Okay? And to see it as that, you're going to die in your sins, which means to miss the mark, to not come to the realization that it was all a psychological drama of the mind, and are to be taken as lessons and not as reality. The Bible is an acronym for basic instructions before leaving Earth. They are just fundamental instructions. Before you leave here in this third dimension, you should understand that it is never something that happened, but it is an instruction manual, a guide.
Sir Chris, I even have a problem with that acronym there, friend. The basic instruction before you leave Earth, because that means that you tell all people all over the Earth, all over the globe, that they must read the Bible. So that means you tell the man we're born in you tell the man in China when man in China no business with no Bible and no Bible wants. Him have him one book.
True.
For him not enough no instruction that to him before him leave no Earth. Them a live and a leave Earth, all right, just like everybody else without reading the Bible. You see that?
Absolutely.
So I listen, man. I don't feel like it's no compulsion like that. My great grandparents live and dead and never read no Bible because they couldn't read it. So all I'm saying is this. Whatever you're supposed to know in a life, it is within you. You're born with that in you. Even if you never read a book, you're born with it. Every man know within himself. So you're not supposed to do this and you're not supposed to. You think a man don't know that? Every man knows say genocide is not right. Every man knows say him not to kill another man. He know that. A lion will chase on a gas deli and ask the lion chase on the next lion and kill him. He knows him not to do it. And him not reading a book. Basic things, brother. It's
let's change the word. Let's change the I from instruction to understanding.
Well, yes. Now that sounds better. And at the same time,
you must understand before you leave here who you are.
You have to.
That is the fundamental expectation, is to know thyself.
That's all you're supposed to know. When you know yourself, when you fully know yourself, you know everything what you're supposed to know. Because at the end of the day, the whole life is about yourself. Are you one born and are you one dead? The beginning is when is your beginning and the end is your end. There is no other beginning apart from your beginning, and there is no other end apart from your end in your world. Every man in our own world, you know, people keep looking at this universal world. Yeah, universal world, no matter outside of you. Outside of yourself, if you never come into this world, then you wouldn't be here even discussing no beginning and no end with nobody. So the beginning is your beginning and your end is your end. When you begin, that's where everything begin, as far as you concerned. And when you end, that's everything end as far as you concerned. It continues for others, but yours end. You know, so this universal beginning that we keep thinking about, that one day the world, no, we come see the world as it is. It starts when you start. It starts when you start.
Yeah, all these things, you know, show separation and stuff like that. You know, and it has you thinking of an end that is to come. You know, from if there was a beginning. You know, the only end you should come to or arrive to is to know thyself. Know that you are a fourth dimensional being and you're projecting in a third dimensional space, a physical space. This is a shadow. When a man walk and you see a shadow on the ground, you know, so the shadow is not real. It's not real. You know that. But what else do you know? Every move you make, the shadow copies. You understand? Every move you make, the shadow, you will never make a move and your shadow don't follow. It is virtually impossible. Your shadow always follow what you do. Always. You understand? So the same for this 3D world. It is a projection or a reflection of the true inner experience. And the shadow can make a move that you did not. Perish that thought. In other words, if you desire an experience or something, until you desire that or have the feeling of that, that certain thing will never happen. Never mention that if you don't have a minimum stimulus of the thing desired. The minimum stimulus here is seen as 3 days. It is not 3 literal days. It is just the number used, 3, third, and so on and so forth. It's just a number used that symbolizes completion. I will destroy this temple, and in 3 days, I will build it back. It's not talking about 3 literal days. It's talking about a time of resurrection. I never same saw the entire Bible and did not see anywhere else in the Bible where there was a time greater than 3 days. Everything was always 3. You know? And the one that I would say exemplifies that is the crucifixion. You know? Crucified on the first day, buried on the second day, resurrected on the third. Whenever you are creating, you must first have a conception. The conception is the thought, the thing desired, Once you think of it, it is a conception. Then the conception or the concept is then crucified to you, the one who's thinking of it. To be crucified to something means that you have become it, or you are being it. You are in the state of being. Once you enter the state of being, the next step is resurrection, birth, the appearance, the manifestation, the realization. So there's always three: conception, crucifixion, resurrection. And then if you contextualize it even more and you look at the description in scripture, where it says Christ was crucified on a Friday, which is the 6th day. Also exemplifying there that 6 represents a fixed state of being. When you are finished, man was created on the 6th day. Not literally, just speaking from a scriptural point of view in Genesis, man was made on the 6th day, meaning your manifestation, man, is made on the 6th day, is finished on the 6th day. 6 is the vowel from the Hebrew alphabet, which is a nail that means to attach. You understand? It is a nail that make two things become one. You the one desire becoming one with your desire. The minute you become one with your desire, the minute the egg is stimulated by the sperm, it is then attached to the womb. It becomes crucified on the womb. You understand? And in due time, in this context here, 3 days, that baby will be made manifested, resurrected. We know it takes 9 months to give birth to a child, but in the psychological point of view, it's 3 days. Okay? 3 days. The stimulus or the stimulation of your desire. You know, that desire is first seen as a damsel. A damsel is in biblical scriptures, biblically speaking, means an unmarried woman. All of your desires are unmarried. To be married means to become one with. And you will always be one with the thing you're married to. So you cannot be married to your desires, or else you would say, or if it's not even a desire, it's just a thought. Let's just say in this case, a negative thought. If we were married to our negative thoughts, we would always be experiencing them. And I'll tell you another thing, you could never change. If you end up in that situation as married to it, meaning that you are attached, you could never change. So if you have all your desires have to be unmarried, and you have to marry them to then become them, to display them. And when they're no longer in your world, it's because you had a divorce or a dissolution. You understand? It's really that elementary. You dissolve what you become by no longer being aware of being it. by taking your awareness from it, to detach from it, to execute the Judas aspect of yourself. Judas is the part of you that changes from one aspect to another. You understand? It's the mind of change. You no longer want to be this mind or this manifestation. You desire something else. And when you become one with that thing, when you reveal the new thing that you are to be, you automatically detach from the thing that you were once conscious of being. And you know, become that. So Judas is the aspect of you that reveals your new savior, your new desire. And it is seen as the art of detachment or the shin. The letter shin is in that word Judas. And it is an aspect of you that means to consume the old and bring in the new. You have to be able to kill the old and bring the new. You have to be able to, in this sense, destroy the temple. And in 3 days, resurrect again. Whatever it is that you desire to be now. You destroy one thing and become another. And whether that thing is something good in your life. All right, Certi. You know, Certi said he had to run. He's on the job. But you have the ability to be one with all your desires. But there's a part of consciousness, which is the law of consciousness, that they have to be laying dormant. They have to be in the invisible or the unknown, the hidden. And you have to call them forth. Until you call them forth, they just lay there dead, so to speak. So damsel is just the unmarried desires. Or in this case, they say a young unmarried woman is a damsel. Okay? The Bible is written in symbolism, metaphors, parables. And we're supposed to see them and make sense of them. Okay? So that's what that part means right there. And all your desires, like I said, are always laying dormant. They're never alive. They're always, if it becomes alive, that means it was resurrected. You gave it life. When they resurrected the child that the man said was dying, that Jairus said that was dying. When Jesus resurrected that child, he said, "Give her our food," which means to keep her alive, to keep the thing that you just resurrected. Giving it food is you being aware of it to keep it alive. That's the food. You understand? Once you become married to this thing, for it to stay in your world, you have to remain married to it. So to remain married to something is giving it life, giving it energy, you know, giving it your conscious attention. And the minute you take away your conscious attention from it, you have now dissolved that thing that you had gotten married to. And then there's a divorce. So man, being male and female, generic man, we're always getting married and always having a divorce. Always in our consciousness. The things that we do in this outer world, getting married, are whether it be by just consensual relationship, not necessarily marriage in terms of a ceremony. That's not a marriage. It's only a ceremony. a recognition of two people dedicating themselves to each other, and you have witnesses. But that's not a marriage. Perish that thought. A marriage is you and your partner consensually deciding to be boyfriend and girlfriend are partners. Okay? That other stuff is man-made stuff for the purpose of money and other stuff. You are always married once you become one with the other person. It's a marriage. All the other stuff is just governmental, dictation. And that's not the true marriage. A true marriage is in mind. That is the real marriage. Your mental acceptance of certain things. You are married to it, whether it be good or bad. A man will do evil, if you want to call evil, he's married to evil. And a man will do good, married to good. You understand? Whatever you're doing, you're married to it. And what you're not doing, you were never married to it, or you dissolved it. You either were once married to it, or you never did get married to it. This is why you're not just doing everything, because you're not married to certain things. You have no interest in certain things. But everything exists because everybody have desires, whether that be good or bad. Okay? So never mentioned something here about helping you to manifest. It's also called dream building, and that is just you using outer objects or outer things to help your faith, to help you to be faithful. So you can touch something. That's one way to do it. If you want to buy a new car, you can actually go to the dealership and sit down in it, touch it, videotape it, all these different things. You can take pictures of it. That's one way. But never talked about if you don't have that, I would say, availability to you to do all of that stuff. You can do it in mind, but pretend that you are actually experiencing what it is. You want to buy a new car, new house. You want to get a new job. In mind, see yourself experiencing all these things. Shake the person's hand. Talk to the person. If it's even talking to yourself alone, whichever way you want to do it. Just do the action, the acting or action, which is the fourth dimension. So you're acting in the fourth dimension, pretending to be. And if you stimulate it long enough, in 3 days, whatever time period that may be, could be 1 year, 1 month, could be 5 days, no particular number. It's just whenever you become aware of being that thing and you accept it, you catch the feeling. In due time, it manifests, and that is you acting in mind. So dream building is you can physicalize it. You can create a dream board, them call it. Put all the stuff that you want to be or want to attain. And every time you see it, your consciousness becomes aware of it. And it's a reminder remember to keep this, keep this in mind, keep this faithful, be faithful to it. But if you do it enough, it will eventually stimulate your mind and you will become it. I do that stuff all the time. When I was working on my barber shop, that's what I did. I drove to places every day pretending I was in the shop, took pictures of the building, took pictures of my car, all these different things. It's called dream building. Touching the building, touching the wall, all these things. Making it 5 sensory. But 5 sensory in the sense of that it is possible. because your five senses can be double-minded. You know, there's a story in the Bible talk about the 10 virgins. 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. They're talking about your five senses. Either accepting whatever you call reality, you know, something that is pronounced and it is what it is, you know. You can't deny it, but you can fool your consciousness by using your five senses in the positive, in the way that you desire the thing to be. So touch something, smell something, see something that you're desiring, hear something that you're desiring, or taste it. All your five senses activate, but you're doing it in a wise or wiser version of yourself. So you're still using the five senses, but you're making them wise, meaning to discipline them. You're 12 disciples in this case, right? But if you're foolish, the foolish virgins, you are accepting everything as facts to your five senses. You can't deny it. It's facts, it's real. It's an experience. And if you accept it, you're being the 5 foolish virgins. The 5 wise virgins is you turning your 5 senses into wisdom, discipline, and it will convince your 4th dimensional self, your imagination, your 6th sense, that you are being that, and it will disregard all the other nonsense that you once believed to be factual and give it what you're being now as facts. But it requires discipline. And these are things that was never taught to us in that sense. Okay? So your 5 senses is the devil, or the 3rd dimension of space. Your 5 senses is the devil spoken of in scripture. Your 5 senses deny what you desire, but you can flip it by becoming disciplined and wise. And the Pharaoh thing that Surti mentioned earlier with the snakes. One was Pharaoh and one was Aaron. That's an example of that, the 5 senses. The wise 5 senses, a serpent or a snake, is seen as wisdom. A serpent means wisdom, or endless reproduction of self. And you swallow up the physical belief that your 5 senses are aware of right now. You swallow that up. You negate it. You don't accept it. You know, you go and apply for a job, and the boss man tells you you are unqualified. You don't accept that. You go within and hear him telling you the opposite. You are very qualified, overqualified as a matter of fact. You know? So when you walk into that place and tell you you're not qualified for the job, just wait, because it is certain and it will not be late. Stay in the assumption that you heard otherwise. Your natural 5 senses heard you're not qualified, but your 4th dimensional sense heard that you are. And you have to choose which one you're going to stay faithful to. Because in the end, you know, we are always faithful in something. We're faithful in the so-called fact that we are not qualified for that thing. We're faithful to that. See, nothing can come into this world without faith. Would that be good or bad? Faith is the glue, the vow, the pledge of you being one thing or another. So in the end, faith is your is your it can be the culprit, you know, or it can be a blessing. But you're always bringing in things by faith. What are you faithful to? Are you faithful to that you're going to get a raise or not? I said, well, I know someone not get a raise in the cause, whatever. And you're dead serious. You have the feeling. Faithful, to be faithful means to have the feeling. You hear people say that sometimes, well, I feel like say this not gonna happen. We just know. And so said, so done. So felt, so done. So you have to be able to swallow up your 5 negative senses or your 5 foolish virgins. Okay? So if we were taught like this in church from the pulpit, just imagine how powerful we would all be. We would all be in heaven, as them say, because we would always be residing in a state of heaven. Okay, we would always be residing in a state of heaven, a state of possibility, a state of bliss. We would never accept anything that's negative. Never, no matter how dire it look. And if you're faithful to it, and the thing still didn't manifest, you do not lose faith in the next thing that you're trying to manifest. Your faith never waver. Yeah, you understand? You're on to the next. Don't ever lose faith because one thing never work out, so it means that nothing's not gonna work out. It did not work out because you have a subconscious hindrance. Something is inhibiting your faithfulness. Your faith is wishy-washy. It's wavering. Something's like it's easier for you to make $1 than $1 million. In your mind, you're thinking that, in your conscious mind. But in your 4th dimensional self, making $1 and $1 million is the same thing. There's no difference. But the conscious mind sets limitations. It's the mind of the 3 dimension, and it lives in the 3rd dimension, but remains married to the 4th. This is why when you think, you go straight to the 4th dimension, because that is that is where you're married. That is your wife. You understand? Every time you start to think or imagine, you immediately go to the 4th dimension. You understand? But the difference is you don't remain faithful to what you're thinking about. And it is them call that grace. That you don't just automatically receive something because you thought about it. That's called grace. It's a grace period. It means, what if it's something bad? But if it's something that you really do not want to experience or do not care to experience, but you thought about it, if in the immediate time that you thought about something and it manifests, I mean, my God, man, this world wouldn't exist right now. So that is a grace period that you're given to, not because you think of something, you automatically download it or become it. It requires a minimum stimulus. So that is grace that was given unto man, or given unto the conscious mind. Because the conscious mind is always thinking. It's the mind of knowledge, the mind of thoughts. Always thinking, always desiring, wisely and unwisely. And so you have a period there that it requires minimum stimulus, a place of feeling, a place where you and your thing thought about touch and become one. There's a distance between you and that thing. And that distance is called grace. It's a grace period. And so that's why some things that we want so badly don't manifest, because everything has a grace period, whether it be good or bad. Everything is subjective, and it's a general law within consciousness that has to exist. Okay? It has to exist. It just depends on how soon you want to get to that feeling. But just to Sir Marlon join the crowd. What go on, Sir Marlon?
Well, I am here, Sir Chris. Blessed love to you and each and everyone here. But yeah, man, I run a little late today, so just sit back and listen.
All is well, man. You're here, and just to close out the lesson today, we're talking about, thinking four-dimensionally. It is a practical inner size. All of the inner size is a invisible action, invisible objective, meaning it's only visible from within. It's never visible from without. It's projected without, but the visibility starts from within. All right? And, just going over some basic things here that was spoken of in the lesson itself. I just want to make this as redundant as possible and as practical as possible. We always have things that we're trying to manifest, and it is very critical and crucial that we come to the understanding of how the mind really works. And that it's like it's a muscle, it's a mental muscle that requires exercise, or in this case, inner size. Okay, everything you're doing from within, so it requires some inner size, mental inner size, and something you have to do over and over until it becomes perfect. Practice makes perfect, as in the word practical. So you're doing something practical, you're practicing it mentally, and you're seeing results. Keep doing it, and you're seeing results, and after a while, you become a pro. You graduate from the elementary to middle level, then to the higher level, and then you go to the collegiate level, and then, grad school and so on and so forth. So you're always elevating till you become a professor. Maybe you want to, you're so good at it now that you can teach the art of manifesting. That's the student becoming the master. You are, but it requires practice. You can't just be wishing or hoping. You have to actually do it. So you have to test it, as Neville would say. Test it and see. You say you will never fail if you put it to the test. You say you may fail to try it, but you will never try it and fail. But every time you try to get better and better, it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing practice. But this is just saying that you should do it consciously, because we're always using the power, but most of the time we're doing it unconsciously. We want to get to the point where we consciously desire something, and we just put it to the test, and it manifests. Like I said earlier, I have things I'm working on, four dimensionally. And right here in the fifth dimension, I mean, in the third dimension, I don't see the possibility. I don't have the necessary requirements for what I'm trying to attain. And my five senses knows it. I literally don't have the so-called means for this thing. But that's not where I live. That's not where I dwell. That's not my dwelling place. That is just what is so-called factual in the world of Caesar. But in the world of my father, the fourth dimensional world, the world of imagination, all things are possible to him or to them that believes. But the belief has to be consistent. Can't believe today and then believe tomorrow, and then the rest of the week, you lose it. Regardless of what's happening, you have to continue that the truth that you're visualizing in imagination. All things are true there. Yes, it is true that you don't see the way, but my Father who's in heaven knows ways that he know not of. The he here is your conscious awareness. It does not know the ways. But your fourth dimensional self knows the way. Matter of fact, it is the way. I am the resurrection and the truth. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the door. Your fourth dimensional self is where you should reside. So where is your dwelling place? Your dwelling place should always be in the fourth dimension. If you stay there, all things that are there, that you become aware of there, will become present in your world. We manifest a lot of negatives because we truly accept that it is so. Boy, I'm not see the money, I'm not see the way, And yes, it just continues to manifest that the way will never show up. So you're always manifesting what you consciously accept in the three-dimensional space. That's why it never changed. Going on for months and years, and I wonder why it not changed. Because you have consciously accepted to, I saw it go, I saw it stay. You're not living in the fourth dimension. So you have five senses in the third dimension. You also have five senses in the fourth dimension. Use the five senses that are there. Don't use the one with the yourself. The one that's here is not real. It's a liar. It's doubt. The devil. Live in the one that's above, not the one that's below. So just trying to make it as redundant as possible. So that was our lesson of today. I don't know if you guys have any questions, observation. I would love to hear testimonials from you guys about things that you have manifested or is desiring to manifest, and using these practical exercises from Neville. And you come back and tell us, boy, the thing that I had desired and boy, I thought it was impossible became possible. I have countless things that I have manifested that at one point, even just today was Sunday, Friday, I had something manifested. And somebody was saying, You see, oh God, good, you know, and I'm like, okay, if you want to use God, thinking it's something outside of yourself. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But I already know that I'm the one that did it. You understand? I was faithful to the assumption and it became fact. And it came like a thief in the night. Unexpected. As in saying, well, never expected it to happen Friday, but I expected it to happen. So it depends on how you see it. I expect it to happen, but you cannot put a time and date on it. Only expectancy. A woman who's pregnant can give birth to the baby prematurely or in the 9 months as it's supposed to be, but it can't come before that. And when it comes before that time, it comes like a thief in the night. You never expect it, but it's here. I have 2 daughters that were born at 6 months each. You understand? They came 3 months early, like a thief in the night. But I was expecting them. And, they just came early. So sometimes that's how it is. It may seem to come early, and sometimes it come late. But it's always going to come on time. Cannot come before, and it cannot come later. It's always on time. And I always like to say, whether it be good or bad, everything you experience is because you love it. Doesn't mean you love it in terms of how we use the word love, but it means that you are being it, you have become it. Most of the time unknowingly. And that's called love. You love it. You have become intimate with it. You have resided in it. And it manifested. But knowing this truth, guys, knowing this how to use the mind and not have the mind use you, more things that you are truly desiring to experience will happen than the undesirable ones. And when the undesirable ones happen, don't get caught up in it. Become conscious that you can dissolve it. Because all things that are dissolved are first dissolved in heaven. Heaven is the 4th dimension. So if something happens and you don't want to know, and you don't want to continue the experience or have it stay in your 3rd dimensional space, dissolve it in heaven, in the 4th dimension, by turning your back on it and only becoming conscious of what is the antidote to it. What is anti that? What is against that? What is opposite of that? Focus on that. And once you become unconscious of being it or experiencing it, it will die under the weight of its own nothingness. We must always be conscious of that. Whatever you want to keep in your presence, stay conscious of that. You understand? And what you don't want to, lose the consciousness. Am I saying it's easy? No, not easy. Because we're 2-part beings. We're human and we're spirit. And we've been conditioned to be humans and not spirit. So, so when things are happening, whether it be sudden or whatever, I know why it's happening. I don't know how to happen, I don't know how, but I know why. You never know how. You only know why. You don't know when. You only know why you want this thing to happen. Stick to your why. And the how and the when, we'll figure it out. You understand? The how is up to the 3rd dimension. I mean the 4th dimension. The why starts in the 3rd. Now, this is what you wanted to project, to reflect. Why you want a car, why you want a house, why you want a vacation, why you want extra money. That's in the conscious realm, the conscious mind. How it is going to happen when is in the fourth. Leave it up to the fourth dimension to figure it out. All your job is to do is to desire and to be faithful to your desire. Long enough until it happens. You know? So I want to hear some testimonials, some testimony of, don't have to tell exactly what it is. You can just say a certain thing, like the Bible says, a certain man, a certain thing that I desired happened in the weirdest and strangest way. But I want you to know that when it happened, it is you who had done it. Had meaning past tense. It is you who had done it. And it's not to be, brushed off or accredited to something or someone else. It is you. It is I. It is always I, always you. That way you can accept it or dissolve it. Can't change what somebody else do for you. You understand? Because you're at their mercy. But you can always change what you do for yourself. Absolutely. So, any observation, question, anything before we close out from this lesson for today? Thinking fourth dimensionally. It was a wonderful lesson. Truly, truly loved it. And I believe it's a very needed lesson, for this group and for others out there. No one? All right. Well, I guess that means I'm a belly full, as they would say. But hopefully by next week you'll be hungry again, when we'll be coming back with another lesson from the fourth dimension to help to, elevate our status here in the third dimension. Just remember, we're four-dimensional beings, but we live in the third dimension only physically. We're just projecting physically here, but our true dwelling place is an inner space of being, an inner world. It doesn't have any location, perish your thought. The fourth dimension has no space, no location. It just is. It's something you are aware of, or aware of being, but it's not somewhere that you can go, because you cannot go where you are, where you live. You're already there. Can't go there. You've never left. You are always there, just projecting here. Simple as that. But you will never find it. Anybody that doesn't find heaven, lie them I tell. You cannot find this place. You only find it within your imagination. Okay? So that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of the day, rest of the week, and good manifesting, good, good four-dimensional thinking and projecting right here in 3D of space. Love you guys. Peace and love, you know. Bless up on yourself. And we'll be back here again next week, Sunday, to do it. Oh, next week, Sunday is Father's Day. So tell all the fathers from now, happy Father's Day when it comes. All right. So that being said, maybe we'll do something in Neville about the father. So that's a good project to look up there. So I'll see what I can find in that aspect for Father's Day. All right. Bless up on yourself, guys. Peace and love. Over and out.